Okay. At this point in the agenda, we ask for comments and suggestions from the citizens present on any item that isn't on the agenda. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council about something that isn't on the agenda, sir?
But it's for something that's on the agenda.
We'll get to that. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on to the council on something that is not on the agenda? If not, consent agenda, please.
To approve the regular meeting minutes of February 27th, 2012. To approve claims in the amount of $358,011.12. A detailed list is available on the city's website. To approve the issuance of regular operators licenses for the period of March 13th, 2012 to June 30th, 2013 to Terry Barrett and Holly Pribno. To approve utilizing Enterprise Rent-A-Car for rental vehicle services for the City of Hudson pursuant to the State Cooperative Purchasing Agreement for rental vehicles as presented. And to place on file the quarterly report of the City Clerk, Library Director, Director of Parks and Public Works, the St. Croix EMS Commission minutes of February 22nd, 2012, and the Advisory Joint Fire Board minutes of February 28th, 2012. That is all.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Roll call?
Morissette?
Yes.
Yakub?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Wyland?
Yes.
Hoggett?
Yes.
Danzel?
Yes.
Motion carries. First item on the agenda is consider a citywide ordinance for boat trailer parking. Streets ordinance number 4-12. Did I miss something?
Stormwater?
Oh, I crossed that off. Let's go back to stormwater. I apologize. Establishment of a stormwater utility ordinance 1-12 and proposed rates resolution 1-12 also. We had first reading at our last council meeting. Is there a motion?
I move to suspend the rules.
We already did that.
We did?
Yep.
Just because you adopt for adoption tonight.
Well, then I'll move to adopt.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is this the ordinance?
Yes. We're gonna do we'll do both,
Ordinance first. Yeah.
ordinance first, and then we'll do a resolution, please. Okay, discussion. Is anyone here?
The only thing I'm going to say is I voiced my concern about the sunset clause, and I voiced my concerns about rate increases, and I feel much better about this ordinance if we could do something specific about that, but knowing that we can't, I will be supporting the stormwater utility because we need the work to get done, and so I think it's important that we do it.
Okay.
We did have one, I did have a comment, a concern, I believe the mayor was copied on it as well, and about, it would be, the request was, can't we make this just part of the overall general levy versus making it a special ordinance and a special fee? And what was explained at that time, so everybody understands it, is that this is focused on a particular issue in the city, and based on levy limits and a number of other things, this is the route we need to go to fund a stormwater utility for the City of Hudson.
At least initially.
At least, yes.
I would agree.
And then, as we pointed out before, as going forward, we can certainly make changes to it to make it part of the general levy
Yep.
at some point when the initial issues are taken care of.
So everyone's aware, I think Lee and I both received an email from one of his constituents, and we talk about, again, I can't deduct it. I think, Rich, you brought that up. One of the things we look at is if we find a major project that we have, we should bond for that and not try and, I think everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
So that we can fund it that way, so. Any other comments? Was anybody else here that would like to speak to this particular issue? I think we're open for that if anybody's here. Okay.
I think the only thing I would like to reiterate is that the reason we've sort of come to this point is the new MS4 regulations that the city is falling under because of the recent census that was done. And so it's going to put a lot tighter requirements on the city as far as reporting and testing, and there is some deferred maintenance that we need to address. And so I'm hoping to, like you, Rich, that once we get past this initial phase of assessing where we're at, that we can shift some of those costs back to our general fund and budget for them annually. So I think we're all on the same page. We probably won't all be here in a couple of years, but
Well, we need to keep that on the forefront.
yes.
That'll be your job, Mr. Vansel.
While I'm here, I will certainly keep it in the forefront.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we have Resolution 1-12. Does anybody have a copy of that?
I'll move to approve Resolution 1-12.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good work. It took a long time. What, we have about 3-4 months of that we were working on that? I think we came to a good resolution. Now we can move on to consideration of a citywide ordinance for boat trailer parking on city streets, ordinance 4-12. Lori, are you gonna?
Sure. Tom wasn't able to make it tonight. Well, this is part of some ongoing discussions that have taken place with DNR over the last couple of months. We've been required to make some changes to our boat launch policy, and one of those is, well, there's a couple. One is that we're required to have an annual season pass, and we'll be addressing that in a few minutes. The other thing is that we are no longer able to have designated parking spots just for city residents. We need to remove those. The other thing we're being required to do, I shouldn't say being required to do, with the introduction of the season pass, we're now going to be faced with the situation where people have season passes, the lot may be filled, and so what do? We really have two options. We could say once the lot's filled, there's no more launching until a parking spot becomes available. That doesn't seem very viable. I think we'd have some angry boaters on our hands. What we decided instead was, let's let people launch and leave. In the past, we've allowed city residents to launch and leave. The DNR told us you cannot let just city residents launch and leave. You must let everyone launch and leave, which introduces a whole new problem. If you're a city resident, a lot of those folks would just bring their vehicles and trailers home, and then they'd, get a ride back downtown. Now we're going to have out-of-state launchers, people who live out of the city launching and wanting to leave. What we discussed at Public Works is we don't want boat trailers and vehicles parked up and down, filling up our downtown streets, filling up businesses, filling up our city lots. And so Catherine has helped us draft an ordinance that would just prohibit on-street parking of boat trailers, empty boat trailers in residential areas and in our city lots. People have asked, well, where can they park? And that's a good question. In the past, some have parked down at Rivers City Center parking lot, the empty grocery store parking lot. I'm not sure that's going to be an option this year now that an athletic center has gone in there.
That's private parking.
It's private parking. And so this really puts the onus on the person who's choosing to launch and leave. If you live in North Hudson, you're welcome to go home, park your trailer, come back to the river. There will be signs posted at the boat launch. There's going to be signs posted at the entrances to the city so people know if you launch, you need to find some place to park your vehicle other than on city streets. We've had issues in the past with residences getting blocked in, people who are disabled, boat trailers parked in front of their houses all weekend.
Can't
It's
get to
just-
their mailbox.
Yeah, it's introduced, with DNR saying you have to let everyone launch and leave. We were really faced with the decision, do we let everyone launch and leave or let no one launch and leave? Questions? I've gone on
And
that.
we've just been looking at, doing this wrapped around this boat launch. If you look at the Malibu boat launch, I mean, I've got a little fishing boat, I've put it in there. People go into Malibu, there are only a few spots, and the majority of people park up the hill or where there's parking. So you're not just affecting this launch, you're gonna basically almost eliminate the use of that launch with something like this. I guess the question is, we're trying to prevent a problem before we know how big a problem we have. Because that's one of my concerns, is that I know for me, and I think it's probably true of others, it's not just take your trailer home and park it. It's take your trailer home, disconnect it, put it next to your garage. It's not just pull it in and leave it. I mean, when I have done that, I park it in front of the house, and then you go out and you come back, and after you come back and reload your boat, you go in and disconnect it and put it back where it belongs. So I think the impact here is greater than you think it's going to be on those that do do launch boats and leave. But the question is, how big a problem do we think we're gonna have? And the problems we have had have been with our own city residents, it sounds like, because they're the only ones that were able to launch and leave. The other question is, how many people will choose not to come to Hudson and go to our stores and things because they're not gonna use this boat launch anymore? I mean, it has some ripple effects in other areas too. Already have places like First Street posted no trailer parking where we've had serious problems. So is it,
And Cooley.
are we chasing a problem that we don't know it's big enough yet? No.
Where would they park? Let's say we don't do this.
4th Street?
Where would they
Everything
park?
within what, Fifth
Whose
Street,
house do
Fourth
they
Street?
gets the privilege of the trailer being parked in front of?
Well, I guess I have a kind of a parallel issue and question. Today people park in front of my house all the time. Sometimes they have trailers, I'm not talking about boat trailers, but just cars.
Right.
They're Minnesota cars too, but anyhow, cars or cars with leaf trailers, or, I'm not sure that we're chasing the right issue here, because the streets are for people to park on. If they're parked legally, they don't get ticketed. If they're parked illegally, they get ticketed. But do we want to prevent people from using our boat launch because we're telling them they can't park in the city?
Well, I mean, I would say this, in the past, you were not allowed to launch and leave if you were not a city resident. So those people didn't come here anyway. I mean, they left with their boats, right?
Correct.
So I mean, they're not, what we're saying is you can launch and leave if you can find somewhere to park your vehicle.
Mhm.
So we're opening that door. It's not a door that we're closing.
But I'm afraid you may be closing a door for local residents who will choose, because if this is just too much of a pain, we're gonna go across the street, across the river and launch.
Certainly
just
their
wanna-
option.
Pardon?
It's certainly their option.
Are they able to park their trailers in the boat launch parking lot, or no trailers in the boat launch parking lot?
Oh, no, they can
Because-
park there as long as
And we
there's
need to
parking
Because we need to
available.
add that in here, because it would have to say except boat launch lot. If this were to go forward,
Right.
we'd have to add that in.
Marty, come on up.
Well, like I
But,
said, you're impacting the Malibu lot actually much more than you're impacting this lot.
Correct.
Any thoughts on the Malibu launch?
I guess I really hadn't thought about it until it got brought up this evening. I know that there's quite a bit of boat trailer parking on Second Street and then going up into North Street. In fact, I know we've got it signed up on the top side of North Street that there's no trailer parking up there. I think there's only 5 or 6 slips down there, and I know it's a very popular lake. I suppose you could look at maybe having an exclusion zone possibly down in that area, say from Division Street or north, make that exempt from the parking restrictions to help that area.
There's no businesses or anything over there, right? It's just basically to launch.
It's just a launch.
Okay.
And it's the only one on Lake Malibu.
Yeah, so it
Correct.
wouldn't really
Yeah.
affect businesses if there's trailers there. I can certainly appreciate the problem that we have with having trailers parked around the city, downtown, wherever they're allowed to park. I think that causes problems. I think that the DNR put us in a really bad position, and we need to figure out a way to handle the city, especially if the Stillwater Bridge isn't closing until
September.
September, so that's after boating season, really, but we're gonna have a lot of congestion in the city to begin with, so.
I'm wondering if the solution, though, isn't to say you can't park anywhere, but to really recognize the areas that are a problem if they park there. And then, like I said, we have the ordinance. In fact, if they park illegally, we ticket them. But if we've got congestion right in the business area, there's just no trailer parking here, period. We had an issue down on Front Street where we had residents and trailers, and we solved the problem there by allowing trailers to park on one side, but not on the other. And so the residents got one side, and if they want to park a trailer, they can. But they were able to work it out with those residents down there.
But just keep in mind, I mean, this could be a much larger problem
Could be.
with us opening this door to everyone can launch and leave.
Right.
And so part of the thinking, Lee, was we're changing the policy, we're putting season passes in place. Let's make this comprehensive, let's address it before it becomes a big issue. And then we're not kind of, in the middle of the summer realizing, wow, our downtown area is swamped. And
See, I have a question. What if King's Landing, what do they do if it's full? Do they allow boats to still drop off but go up and park? Currently, like if it were like last year.
They're a private launch, they can do what they want.
Right, so they could let people in and then you could go
Correct.
and park up on the city streets, is that?
Correct, right now they can.
Right now, they can. But under this ordinance, they wouldn't be able to park on city streets.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think the advantage that at least Hudson has is that launch is a long ways away from where residential streets are in the first place. I mean, you virtually got most all of downtown, you already got the main streets ordinance with no trailer park in the first place, so.
but our main streets aren't. I mean, we just have First and we have Cooley, correct?
the only
There's
two.
nothing else that's
Right,
signed at this point.
People park Orange, Myrtle, all the way down in my neighborhood. We see a lot of trailers there.
I just foresee the high school issue coming all around again, where every month at safety, it's in, which street are we gonna put no parking, residential parking only during school hours? We keep visiting more and more streets. We keep going down to the next street, to the next street, to the next street. I don't know if I wanna keep going down to the next street on this issue too. We either need to, like being suggested, blanket a main area and assuming that people aren't gonna go any further out, or we need to do it all around and with an exception to Malibu.
And Marty, could you please address some of the issues that have come up with people, coming for the weekend or for an extended stay and they're leaving there?
Yeah, we've run into several occasions where people have come and parked on either city streets or they parked in the public safety lot and they've been there for a long period of time. They're asking for places to park and there really is no place really for them to go other than they get a 24-hour parking notice from us. Tow companies won't tow a vehicle with a trailer attached to it, so we'll run into another problem of, removing the vehicles once they're parked. I know we've had some residents down in the 700 block of 3rd Street here that had problems with a boat a few years ago that was parking, a trailer that was parking down there for 5 days in a row. I think that gentleman was avoiding paying the launching fees at the same time. But I can expect to see more people coming, because I don't know how many times when I've been down there on the weekends, people would come in and the boat lot would be full, they'd turn around and leave. Well, if that's not the case anymore, if they can launch their boat and just go park, they're gonna find a spot. I think we're gonna have a lot of trailers downtown.
And they'd have to park legally, though.
They have to park legally, but the situation's gonna be, are the city residents gonna wanna have somebody's boat trailer parked in front of their house 3-4 days?
And I guess the question there is, people come and park in front of my house for 3 or 4 days. I mean, it's whether they have a trailer on or not. Do we really own the street in front of our house?
No, you don't.
No,
City
but
owns
neither
it
does
now.
the person who's parked there.
Oh.
I think the issue, Lee, that I see is the fact that now you're taking not just one spot, but you're taking 2 spots with that trailer. So if
And
we
then-
put 100 trailers, cars and trailers on 2nd Street or 3rd Street, I think that's gonna be a big problem. I mean, I think it's, people have a tough time getting there. I think they're delivered there, aren't they? Don't they come to your door with the mail? There's no mailboxes up there, so that's not an issue. But even having access, I know there's one person on 3rd Street that had a real tough time. She couldn't get out of she couldn't walk down, she had to walk over there, and she was an elderly lady. Made it really difficult for her. And that car was there. I think it's a Memorial Day weekend that this particular individual comes up from Iowa, parks in front of her house, has done for about 5 years now. And it's really a pain. And I don't know, I don't see any reason we shouldn't try this and see what happens. I agree with Lori, I don't think we're restricting, I think we're being very open, we're gonna have more people come here. I don't know where they're gonna park their trailer, unless they have somebody in town they know, come and park it in my driveway.
Well, there's other places, Beanie's, when you launch there, when you can't park close to the ramp, you can go up and park in the streets and then they pick you up in their golf cart. So, at some point, we could have outlots where people might be able to get shuttled down to the dock.
You know, it could be an opportunity for someone.
Well, you
for an
know, you look at
entrepreneur
like
to
Family Fresh or other places up there, that their lots half empty all the time, so.
people, yeah, I'm not gonna name other lots because I don't wanna endorse people parking there
Sure.
because they're private, but I mean, it could be an opportunity for someone to make some money, allowing people to
Well,
park.
and as I understand it, we had problems when it was just residents being able to launch and leave. And we know we had problems when that was a small part of it. And the largest part of the launch is actually non-residents. So we were having problems when it was just the smallest part of our launch fee. And now we're going to expand it to the largest part, and we know we're gonna have problems. And so there's no question in my mind, this is gonna turn into a large problem if we don't address it now.
And mostly on the weekend.
Which is when we have a lot of tourists and
Yeah.
restaurants are busy. I don't wanna have a disaster this summer and have a large parking issue and have it affect our businesses, you know, in a negative way, so.
Well,
If-
the
I
only
guess if we
others-
had our choice, we'd leave it at non-residents could not launch and
Right.
leave. But we don't have a choice. I mean, we're not given that choice.
Yeah.
Or we do not allow
Or we don't
lunch and
allow
leave.
anyone to
launch at
launch.
So we
all.
allow 48 people to have a lunch and then we're
I'm
done.
never done.
And I don't think that's the right
No,
thing.
I don't think that's
I
the
don't
right answer
either.
either.
One of the boat owners I talked to said, you know, if all it is I need to buy a sticker to park my boat and trailer someplace in Hudson, he said, I'll do that. He said, I do launch and leave, I'm a local resident, and I would easily pay a boat sticker to park in the city. So, it just feels to me like, you know, you've got, if we targeted the areas that are a problem, and we let people launch and leave and park in, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and I mean, places further away from the river, there wouldn't be that big an issue.
There'd be an
But-
issue somewhere else, I think.
Yeah, but if you go back to the King's Landing, let's say Hudson says, we aren't gonna allow people to drop their boats off, whether you're resident or non-resident. For $2 more, I can go to King's and then do that, and you're still faced with the same dilemma of whether or not they can park on the street, so.
I think what we're saying, though, is they won't, even if they launch at King's Landing, they can't park anywhere in the city of Hudson.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
So then you would wanna leave that at least open for everyone to launch, even if there isn't spaces, so the city residents that can actually park their trailers and vehicles off the streets have that option.
The only other thing I know, it's probably a small percentage of the people that can't just drive their trailer home and park it. I mean, I'm one of those, I can't. You have to disconnect it and put it someplace. I know 2 or 3 of my neighbors, the same thing. They can't just, it's not that easy to just drive in the driveway and leave and go back. But it's one other, and I don't know how big a percentage of people, maybe that just affects those of us in downtown that basically have the driveway between the house and the alley, you know?
Any other comments? Randy?
It's not an easy issue, any way you look at it, but certainly if any of these residents have that issue in front of their houses, you're gonna hear about it. I mean,
I guess that my issue is why do we sign First Street and not,
because the people down there complained.
They
okay?
complain.
Then you go to Second Street, then
That's
you go
gonna
to
be the
Third
high
Street,
school
and they
all
will.
over again. That's my
Absolutely.
point.
That's the issue, I think.
But you get back to, why did we sign First Street, you know, many, many years ago? Because there were a lot of complaints, okay? If we, you know, if we handled that differently, we probably wouldn't have to sign First Street. I mean, if you had, this side is boat parking, this side's not. The same problem we had on Front Street, where all the parking was being sucked up by boat parking, and the residents were stuck. And I assume that was the problem in First Street as well.
It wouldn't have worked on First Street. It got too busy down there.
It's also a
as
little bit
compared to
narrower
Front
street. Isn't that a little narrower street?
Well, there's a lot of congestion and traffic, and when people come down for excuse me, concerts and other
That's right.
booster days, it's crazy. There's already a lot of people parked just regular, so.
So it wasn't just complaints, it was the mere congestion.
People already complained that there's a parking problem downtown, so.
I don't think there's
I
a
don't agree to
magic,
that, but, you know, there's already that complaint, so we're just gonna be adding to that complaint. I
Well,
think the
they'll take
complaint's
2
already
spots,
there.
they'll take 2
Yeah.
spots instead of 1.
The complaints are already there.
Leah, you know, I appreciate your question because but there just simply is not a magic answer to this.
No, it isn't, and by doing this, we're basically saying, if we look for a more strategic solution and say, you know, you can park anywhere beyond 4th Street. Before 4th Street you can't, because there's too much downtown. that might be a solution that would work.
But
But we won't know if there's any other solution
But
with
the
this.
same problems that we've had downtown will just move a little bit further up the hill. We'll have people parked for several days, extended stays in front of someone's yard.
But it's not that much, there, after you get past about Third Street, there isn't as much congestion, or Third or Fourth Street.
Honestly, I wouldn't appreciate having it, I guess, in front of my house for extended periods of time, and I don't really wish to put that on someone else. It's a decision that the city's making to open it up, and I think we have to work with homeowners and respect. There is already a parking issue. Let's not add to it with trailers.
Okay, anything else? John?
I just think, again, it's an opportunity for other places in Hudson to allow people to park and people could shuttle. I mean, I just think that might end up becoming the ideal solution. That could house a lot of boats
Absolutely.
and would be a nice tidy. We could even tell people where designated lots are for that kind of, and that might just end up working, so.
Okay.
Well, we pursued that, and
Yeah,
we're told that we cannot be associated with another private company because of liability issues.
someone asked if we could approach the school district and see if the high school parking lot would be available. And we were told
But if-
that, it's something we can look into. We might be able to give them some ideas of places.
Is it
that they can
possible
park.
for a private enterprise to do this?
Sure.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes, if they do it on their own, we're okay.
Okay.
yeah. So calling all entrepreneurs looking for summer work.
So would I hear that some people are concerned about on Second Street there, we can sign that so that we allow parking there? Does anyone have a problem with that down by Corky's,
To me, Malibu,
Malibu parking lot, that we allow there, or do you feel uncomfortable allowing that?
I mean, so right now it says no parking up at the top of that.
There's no parking at the top on one side of North Street, but otherwise, normally people are parking on both sides of
Second.
Second Street right there. And if you act this ordinance without making an exception, there'll be no place for those people to go.
and there's no businesses, and there's no, I can't picture it in my head.
Yeah.
That-
city
It's right before you
garage.
cross
City
the bridge to
garage.
North
The
Hudson.
garage, that's
Yep.
right.
And I don't know if the neighbors from North Hudson would appreciate it if people started crossing the bridge and started parking in the neighborhoods over there.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, there may be some North Hudson residents who are coming and
Yep.
launching and filling our streets.
I don't know if you should start piecemealing it. I think we should try it all first,
Okay.
is my opinion.
I would be, I can be flexible on some of this other stuff and hear what you're saying, but I think you'll be shutting down that launch if you don't create parking there.
Anybody
See-
else's thoughts?
Why can't those people also launch and bring their trailers home? Why are they any different than the people who launch down here and
Where
we
would they-
expect them to go home? I'm just wondering, I mean,
Yeah, I think it's a
Fair question.
little different situation where you can launch and leave here and walk back down. You can't launch, well, you can, it's just a long walk
depends
from
on where you
downtown.
live, I suppose, but
And then when you get back,
Why would you walk back down? Wouldn't you just bring your car back down?
You can park a car on
you don't
it.
want them to bring their car back down because then it sucks up more parking downtown. You want them to park and walk back down.
well,
Oh.
that's not realistically for people who live up on the hill.
Oh,
or,
do they launch
you
here
know.
too? You're right.
Part of our city
right.
is up there, yeah, so I don't know.
No, you're right. I was thinking more about the residents in the downtown who are launching and leaving, but
Yeah.
Malibu being that, that launch is just a long ways away from,
I think the majority of the people that do that overnight parking there for extended period of times are people that come over and probably camp on the islands for their vacations and stuff like that. I would say that I've been a voter a long time, and I would say that most voters I know from both the Twin Cities and the Prescott area and region, if they can't find a spot like at the city launch, including me as a resident, I go to Beanies, I go to Kings, I go to Anderson Windows, I'll kind of hit the different places to get in, so, again, it might be more of a problem here. I mean, it might be, you're making a bigger problem than it might be, other than like the 4th of July weekend.
I would entertain the idea of opening it up just on that, is it North Street?
That would be Second Street.
No, but I'm saying not on Second Street, because you know what's gonna happen?
Up the hill.
it's gonna,
It do-
it's
it
gonna start
does-
filling up on Second Street, you know.
Not more than it
into-
does today, though. It wouldn't be any worse than it is today. Because we're not changing the rules at that launch.
No, I'm saying you might have other people launching here and parking down there. Conceivably, you could. See, some people have two vehicles, Lee. They come, you know, it's more than one, you know, vehicle and one trailer. It's a party of, you know, several people. They've got more than one vehicle, one boat. So they could be shuttling. I'm just saying, I would entertain it on, it's North Street that goes up the hill, yeah.
But it's currently signed, I believe, no parking on both sides of North Street.
But they park,
As you're going up the hill.
but they do anyway. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
They park on Second.
No, on the left side going up, that's no parking. That's parking, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but that road is very narrow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do that.
So what's your pleasure, council? Do we need more?
You could, just suggest maybe let one side of Second Street be parking for trailers down in that area.
From where to where?
The bridge,
From
or?
North Street to the railroad underpass.
Yeah.
That would seem like a good compromise.
Because you're talking about not only the hot boating season, you're also talking about spring and fall when the fishermen come and go early in the morning or late, you know, it's just like you're affecting a lot more people, and I think that it would be helpful to do it that way.
Could we live with on the ones, it would be the east side of Second Street? West side, excuse me, the west side of Second Street, from the North Street to the railroad bridge. There's probably room for 10 cars there with trailer,
And-
8.
And then one side of North Street then?
I don't know if we even have to address North Street.
No, I think you leave North Street off.
So just the one side of Second Street?
Why are we
I don't know.
piecemealing this when what's the criteria for us to allow parking for those folks in Malibu and not,
Because there's
The
only
Malibu-
5
yeah.
spots in
Only 5
Malibu, and there's
spots versus
49
48.
spots at
that's a
First.
decision,
Exactly.
it's a choice then. Why should we force the choice?
I think
It's
there's a
free to
comp-
launch there, right?
Yep,
You get on Malibu and out on the river, but yeah.
We need to stick to the ordinance as it is, I think.
okay. Is that a motion?
Can you add
First
except
you
for
have
the
to
boat launch
suspend.
lot in there?
Suspend the rules unless people think that needs to be reworked. I'm all in favor of that, if they can find.
Okay, is there a
logic.
motion to suspend the rules? Is that what you're doing?
Yep.
Is
Move
there
to
a second?
suspend.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Roll call?
Wyland,
No,
Haggett,
Yeah.
Vanslo,
Yes.
Morissette,
Yes.
Yakub,
Yes.
Bernard.
Yes.
Okay. Motion, the rules are suspended. Is there a motion?
Move to pass or adopt ordinance number 4-12.
I'll second.
Can I ask you to put in that we exclude the boat launch to park
Sure,
trailers in?
sure.
I'm going to ask you, we've just.
Just hang on a second, please.
So that one down there.
The boat
I'm s-
launch lot,
yes.
yeah.
That we allow trailer parking in the boat launch, because I think it says that there isn't.
City-owned
correct.
parking lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that okay with a motion
Yep.
and a second? Okay, Lee?
By suspending the rules and by adopting this tonight, I encourage you not to adopt it tonight, to give the residents the chance to know what we're asking them, knowing what we're thinking about here. By suspending the rules and adopting it tonight, you're not leaving any comment for the residents.
Okay,
I would like you to vote against it, and then next meeting, we can vote to adopt it.
I guess I beg to differ. We've got people here tonight about the issue. I mean,
You know, Lee, I think our hands are kind of tied on this one, too. I think DNR has placed rules upon us that we really don't want to have to enforce, but we're forced to enforce them. And so we have to make the best of it, and I think I agree to at least give it a shot, and if it turns out to be a bad decision, we can always change it for next season.
So my question, so you can still park for free and launch and leave at the Malibu
yes.
ramp, but we're not going to allow any exceptional parking on the west side of Second.
that's correct. That's according to what the motion is.
The problem I have with it is we're charging for parking here and we're telling people here, you can't launch and leave your boat anywhere near the ramp. You can go park for free, by Malibu, and you can park in the street. It's not, to me, it's not a consistent approach to the issue.
That's what I said.
Rich, any comment?
No, I think we should just make it very clear that it's, launch and leave, and there's just no parking.
Okay. Randy, anything else?
No, and Lee, I do appreciate your comment, but I just think this, we can always go back and change it. We'll hear the input. But
Okay.
let's see it work first, or not work.
If we had the option of saying this, if we could limit it to say residents could do this.
Yeah.
If I was dealing with residents, I'd feel differently about this, but what I'm worried about is the non-resident area that we're talking about here. And as Mary said, we don't have any control over that. The DNR said we have to do the same for everybody. And so I would treat it differently if it was a resident issue, but it's not. It's a non-resident issue as well as a resident issue.
Right, and that's the major issue.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a comment that was made about the allowing residents versus non-residents to launch and leave. And I said, well, we would probably have a real problem with where the non-residents are gonna park their trailer. And the comment was, that's not my concern. Well, it's our concern
It is.
because, again, parking for our businesses and in front of people's homes, so. Okay, any other comments, questions? Call for the question. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Boat launch season passes and overview policies and procedures.
I'm beginning to think Tom was strategic
I think
in
Tom,
not being here
it's very
tonight.
important not to be here
He
tonight.
told me he just wasn't feeling the boat thing.
It's okay. Okay, so this goes back to the issue I was talking about earlier. The DNR basically sets what we can establish as our launch fee. And the maximum we can charge is the equivalent of a daily pass at the state park. So if you go to Willow River and get a daily pass, the charge is currently $7. It may be going up in the future, but in any case, we're sticking with that $7 launch fee for residents. We can only go up to 150% of that base fee for non-city residents, so that's whether you're a North Hudson, Town of Troy, or a Minnesota resident. They're all going to have an equivalent non-resident fee. That's how this initially started, was we had a 3-tiered fee structure before. The DNR is telling us it needs to be a 2-tier structure. The DNR has regulation or authority over this launch because it's a municipal launch. They really don't have these same things to say about all the private launches, so we fall under their jurisdiction to some degree. So we set the daily fee at $7 for residents, $10 for non-residents. I know there's one individual here who'd like to speak to that issue. But beyond that, we can charge up to 10 times that amount for a season pass. So that would make a season pass for a city resident $70 and a season pass for a non-resident $100. This is the first year we've offered a season pass, and it's something, frankly, that's been, people have inquired about in the past and asked if we could do it. What I'd bring to your attention are 2 sheets. One, just kind of a boat launch summary of expenses that Tom drew up, just to give you an idea of some of the things that are involved in running the boat launch, as far as attendance, maintenance, cleaning, the portable restrooms, lighting, sweeping the lot. They did some dock purchases back in '05 and '06, that was $30,000. You might remember we did mill and overlay in '09, that was $20,000. There's some significant costs, and really the goal is for these costs to be, garnered by the people who use the boat launch. So, the goal is not to be putting this tax on people who don't launch a boat, bottom line. The other sheet I'd bring to your attention is a list of the boat launch fees. They did a little research on local launches, and they vary pretty, I think pretty significantly. And what's outlined are the fees, and then what services they have, whether or not there are bathrooms available, if it's a gravel parking lot, if there's lights. We have one of the nicer launches around, I think, and I don't even have a boat, but I feel pretty confident saying that, and I've heard comments from several boaters to that degree. Beanie's $14 to $20 daily launch fee. If you go over to Afton, 15 for a boat under 24 feet during the week, 20 if it's over 25 feet. Weekend fees go up to 22 to 24, or $30 if you have a larger boat. They have season passes at $90, but it's only for residents. So if you're a non-resident, you can't even get a seasonal pass there. And on that down, I won't go through all of them. But I think our fees are very much in line. I don't see anyone who's less than ours, other than, I guess, the Cove Boat Launch.
Where is that?
It's down at the end of South Cove, I think it is, way down at the end. There's a boat launch
Okay.
down there.
There's no restrooms. It has limited hours. There's 12 parking spots. My understanding is it's not.
Is that a county?
I think it's owned by an association.
Town, it's the
Town?
town of
Town.
Troy, that's what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So I think our fees are very much within line. They're very competitive. I don't see anyone lower than we have, and we have, I think, the nicest, or at least one of the nicer launches around. I know this gentleman would like to speak to if you'd come up to a microphone, please.
Yeah, if you could state your name and address, please, I'd appreciate it.
Pat Nolan, 1121 First Street. And I just am here to talk about the 50 cents, where if $10.50 is an allowable charge for non-residents, I think we should charge that instead of 10, because over the course of the season, I think it could add up to $1,000 quite easily. And, there's large expenses there, so I don't think we should charge less than what's allowed.
Okay.
And so that, that would bring our seasonal pass for them up to $105. And, Tom, I got an email from him late this afternoon. He said it wouldn't be a big problem for them to be dealing with the change. That was the initial reason we just set it at 7 and 10, thinking. But
Kind of figured they'd handle all the quarters.
Well, I think, what if there's no attendant on duty, and you're, I guess that was the rationale.
we're hoping they'll round up.
Okay. Then, well, we can't go to 11.
No.
I'm telling you, as a boater, and since '96 here in Hudson, I always have quarters in my truck
Okay.
because you need them.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, it's just the way it is.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the boat launch deal? Otherwise, we're gonna keep it here. Okay.
So I would, given that Tom concurred that it wouldn't be a big problem for them, I would agree with going to $7 for city residents and $10.50 for non-residents, especially given some of these prices that we're seeing.
And 70 and 105.
And $70 and $105 for seasonal passes.
I had one question from one resident, and I think there's two sides of the same question, and that is, based on last year's usage, has anybody done a calculation to say, based on last year's usage and these fees, will we cover our expenses, was one question. And the other question was, with last year's usage and these fees, do we expect to just make a lot more money?
Last year's usage was really an anomaly.
All right, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Lee, what's kind of a challenge is there's some standard fees, and then there's some things, not fees, standard costs of running the ramp, and then there's some periodic things like
Right.
purchasing the docks and mill and overlay. Those aren't done every year, and so hopefully we're accumulating enough money that when those things need to be done. I know Tom mentioned this year they want to add some sort of wheel or cart system for the dock so that they're able to transport them more easily. So there's some of those periodic expenses that we need to make sure we're
They're
providing
trying to get
for.
over this water issue, Lee.
Oh,
They'd
yeah.
like to make some modifications so that when we get the higher water, we'll still be able to launch.
Sure.
So they're looking at some costs to try to do that, but based on Tom's estimates, the fees would cover the cost to run the launch.
Okay. And at the same time, we're not looking at, my calculation of the little I know, looked like we were gonna come around pretty close to what it was that we needed to run the launch. Plus, like I said, a few dollars to put away to try to maintain things.
And I know Tom mentioned last year they were down like 20,000 for the year, which is significant.
I guess what we don't know, Lee, is how many people are gonna buy the season passes, because we didn't
Exactly.
have those last year.
Right.
So it was a daily fee for everyone, including non-residents. And again, the majority of the income comes from non-residents. But if they purchase this pass that we have and then use the boat launch 25 times, and if they used it 25 times last year, we would have less income from those people, but we don't know what that's going to turn out to be.
Right, and that's why I want to get the perception out there that by changing this fee structure, we're not looking to bring in any more money than we have. And I think
No,
that's.
We're gonna
the
lose
mistake.
money, I think.
Yeah,
That's not the
and we
objective.
could possibly end up breaking even, or maybe the other way
I
around.
think we're
So
gonna lose money.
I would just want to get that perception out there to the public that as we're looking at this, we're trying to make sure that we have our costs covered, number one.
Does anyone think that our season pass for our residents is too high?
Yeah. But, you know, I understand the numbers here, so quite frankly, I thought it should be 40, 70. As far as $40 for residents, 70 for non.
I don't think we can go 70, I think we can go 1.5
No,
times.
the numbers don't work, so.
35, 50, or however that works out.
But talking it
50,
out,
75.
I figured my calculator out.
talking it out here, I mean, it seems that I think these prices on, as far as the summary of operating it is high, because we don't initially always mill and overlay it. And the concrete ramps, we've already done that. So my overall thought is, no, I don't agree with raising the fees, but in support of the budget for it, I'll be voting yes.
Well, to me, it's just a matter of how many, sorry, Alan, how many times am I gonna launch? So if, am I gonna use my boat 10 times this summer? Geez, I hope so, but that's a lot of times, to be honest. So will I buy the season pass? And not until I get into 11 and 12 and higher am I really gonna consider using it. So
And-
are we actually just offering it kind of as a,
Well, you know, the people who've inquired about this in the past are some of the people who fish during the week, and they launch a lot on the weekdays, you know, much more than the people who just use it on the weekends. So that may be who benefits the most from the seasonal pass,
Absolutely, yep.
yeah.
Heavy users of the boat launch,
Mhm.
and they do a lot of fishing.
That brings up something that's totally back, but I think the one city I was in, the only way you could park on the street is if you bought a season pass, something to consider in the future. It was an interesting correlation.
Everyone would buy a
Minnesota
season
City.
pass.
Yeah, we'll take that under advisement.
Yeah,
I mean, why wouldn't you? Yeah, you guarantee yourself a place to park.
yeah, it was an interesting correlation.
So,
So Randy, you said you don't want to raise the price at all?
No, I'm okay with it. I agree that there needs to be a season pass option.
Okay.
I just don't like, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'll support it so it actually helps operate it.
the reality is we want to have a great lunch,
We have one.
you know, and we want to be able to keep it that way and continue to attract people to our downtown, so.
Okay, is there any other comments? Anybody else have anything they want to add? If not, we have a motion and a s-
I would
Yeah,
like
we
to
do.
make a motion.
I thought you did.
I sort of sounded like I did, but I
Okay,
didn't
I'm sorry.
officially. I would like to make a motion that we approve the policy and procedure with the fees at $7 for city residents and $10.50 for non-residents, and seasonal passes at $70 for city residents and $105 for non-residents.
I'll
Effective
second,
this season.
I'll second the motion.
I have a
Okay.
question. Yeah,
Excuse me?
I have a question.
Yep. Is there there's been a second?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
The season passes, we obviously raised them $5 or whatever, raised out of non-city residents $5 just now. Does it have to correlate? Is it, we have to go from 100 to 105 just because we added 50 cents or?
No, the season pass can't be any more than 150% of the daily pass. So I would think if we're going to raise the daily pass, I think it makes sense to make the seasonal pass correlate. Why would you have it only be 140% or
No, I just-
140?
Well, I just don't know. I mean, we're maximizing it is what I'm seeing, which,
Which,
fine.
can I just say, city residents have, I mean, I think they're kind of saying if you're raising our rates, then you better be raising non-resident rates as much as you can.
Okay.
And I mean, we're talking $5 for the year.
I'm intrigued by the fact that you don't think you'd launch your boat 10 times?
I am an exception, I have a dock, so I guess I only launch a couple times a year. But
So if you
even,
didn't have a dock,
even prior to that though, 10 times is a lot, so, because you have to figure out nights and weekends, when you're gonna boat, so I may not get the city pass. But as Alan points out, it's, you know, the heavy users of
Ray, I understand.
yeah.
I understand who would get the city pass. I'm just
But we're-
looking at the threshold in my head. I'm just thinking of thresholds, and I think either way, I don't think it's definitely not a money generator for the city either way. I'm just still trying to look at the
The
threshold.
number 7 in my head sort of strikes me as 7 times 7's, well, 49 or 50, and whatever the appropriate percentage would probably get me to buy a season pass.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, new business,
Well,
amendment.
what about the urban forestry
Oh,
board?
gosh, yes. Formation of the Urban Forestry Committee, ordinance 5-12.
This is something Tom brought forward to Public Works, just asking that we make the Hudson Urban Forestry Committee a permanent committee. We saw a presentation 2 weeks ago about the work that's been done regarding the tree inventory. We have some very experienced and motivated residents who are on that committee. They're really going to help us with managing our tree inventory, using whatever dollars we allocate to trim trees, remove trees where it's appropriate, to treat some of our ash trees. And Tom just really felt like it'd be helpful to establish this group as an ongoing committee. And so ordinance 512 was put together. The group will include a council member appointed annually by the mayor and 6 additional citizen members, each for 2-year terms. They're going to be staggered so that 3 of the individuals will be up every other year. And the director of public works would act in an advisory capacity to that committee. So these are volunteers, and it's not dissimilar to, I'm thinking of
Park Board.
Park board.
Park Board.
Well, and
And they would be managing $17 million in city assets, which
Yep.
is what our trees are valued at.
would it, I'm just thinking about adding a council member to this, and with the amount of committees that we already sit on, if they're meeting monthly, would it make more sense to do this with the park board rather than have it as a separate standing committee?
Actually, we don't meet monthly, and I happen to be the current chair of the Hudson Urban Forestry Board, and we're trying to meet as needed, and it's a little more front-loaded at the beginning of the year, because we look at the budget that Public Works has set forth and try to parse it out based on the 5 or 6 things that you're supposed to do, and then there's Arbor Day, and then it gets kind of quiet. So, I mean, it's not an actual monthly deal.
Okay.
It hasn't been a huge deal to be involved with that. Just FYI.
Thank you.
Anybody want to suspend the rules, or do you want to have a first reading tonight?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yakub,
Yes.
Wyland,
Yes.
Haggett,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Morissette.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 5-12?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any other discussion?
One thing that you might want to put in here is when the appointment is, if you want it, April, May, whatever, because different committees are appointed at different times of the year, just so that's in there, so that it's clear.
I think we should
Okay.
do it in April.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
With all the other committee appointments?
Actually, the only reason I would tend to disagree is because Arbor Day is right at the end of April. So it's kind of hitting everybody right at the time when we're all getting ready for our big annual thing. I don't know if that sounds weird or not, but it may not be really
I believe the
affected
Police and Fire Commission is May. Are you saying you want it after or early?
after.
After the trees bud.
There you go.
After Arbor Day.
After Arbor Day.
I don't
It
care.
could be done in May when you do the Police and Fire
That's fine.
Commission one, then.
So May.
That's okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll get that in there somewhere then. Thank you.
Anything else?
Do we have to say how often they meet? If they meet as needed, that's just determined later.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, we can move to amend municipal code concerning additional licensing requirements for cigarette and tobacco license, refuge and garbage hauler license, and sewer cleaning license, ordinance 3-12. Who brought this one on? Anybody know?
Not me.
My guess is it was brought through probably from Nancy, so there was consistency with what we're doing with all the other license holders.
Okay,
And Gwen is shaking her head, so I assume that was the,
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, but Nancy continues to find places in your ordinances that need to be modified to take this into account.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
roll call, please.
Haggett,
Yes.
Vanzel,
Yes.
Yakub,
Yes.
Bernard.
Yes.
Morissette.
Yes.
Wyland.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion on ordinance 3-12?
Move to approve ordinance 3-12.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, establishing the St. Croix EMS as a city department, ordinance 6-12. Lori,
Yeah.
EMS representative?
Catherine had suggested a while back that we look at establishing a city ordinance regarding EMS. She really felt like it was not consistent with what's going on in other cities. We had, much of our governance was in our bylaws, and we had a consultant come in over the past year and look at our EMS department, and we're really trying to do some housekeeping and get some things in order and clarified. And so this establishment of this ordinance is one of those goals. And so what you have in front of you is something Catherine put together, the EMS Commission has looked at and approved. It just clearly defines the duties of the EMS chief, the functions of the EMS Commission. It establishes the EMS as St. Croix EMS as a department of the city. It just cleans up a lot of things that have sort of been hanging out there. So it's not bookkeeping, it's housekeeping, and anything that was in the bylaws is included in here. And we can still, if we choose to, we can still add some things to bylaws if we feel like, there's a need for more day-to-day operations type activities to be outlined. But what you have in front of you is pretty much encompassing what we do.
So this is consistent with our fire department as well?
It is, yeah, it is. It's probably been a long time in coming, and
Do you want to suspend the rules, or do we want to have a first reading?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Vanzel,
Yes.
Yakub,
Yes.
Wyland,
Yes.
Bernard.
Yes.
Morissette.
Yes.
Haggett.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk. Any questions? Any other concerns? I know we had this in our packet.
But one of the things that we'd given, I just missed it in here, one of the things that we'd given Eric was the emergency management. But
That's-
that is not gonna be covered under EMS, that's just another job duty.
Correct.
Okay. Because we were talking about at the fire board meeting, I can't remember the acronym now, the.
I know what you mean. I can't even.
MRSA, I'm sorry, I can't remember the acronym, but the Association of Cities for Emergency Preparedness. And so I want to make sure that we get that covered with Eric eventually here.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We need a motion.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Is there a motion? I
Move
thought
to
there was a
approve.
motion, that's why. we-
Ordinance 612.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item C, amend municipal code, chapter 118, prohibiting synthetic cannabinoid. Is that close enough? Ordinance number 7-12.
Move to suspend the rules.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call?
Morissette.
Yes.
Bernard.
Yes.
Wyland.
Yes.
Yakub,
Yes.
Haggett.
Yes.
Vanzel.
Yes.
This is scary stuff.
Move to approve 7-12.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Marty, do you want to come up and give us a quick, why this is a good thing for us?
Well, basically what this does is it allows us to enforce the synthetic marijuana or synthetic cannabis statutes locally versus going through state statutes. The ordinance in front of you is adopted from Fort Atkinson, which basically took it almost word for word from the state statutes. So basically what it'll allow us to do is our officers, should they come across this in a traffic stop, it's a small amount, instead of having to charge this person through circuit court, taking them to jail and so forth, we can just write them a municipal ordinance citation and proceed it that way. That way, whatever citation money comes out of that comes back to the city. Makes it much easier for our officers to handle.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
In public safety, hopefully, I think we've talked about adding more teeth to an upcoming ordinance as far as paraphernalia is concerned, and some federal litigation that's going on with that. So hopefully, public safety will take that issue and bring it
Yeah,
forward.
we'll be taking that up eventually.
And Marty, can you, I don't know if you're at liberty to speak about any of the things that have been going on recently with this particular set of drugs?
Well, I know locally, we had done a search warrant at our local establishment here in town looking for that item. We did conduct an investigation on that. We did not seize any. They had removed those items prior to our arrival. We have been getting a lot of reports from the school district in regards to students coming to school and stating that they were high on this type of activity or this type of drug, that they've been using it and getting it very easily. So that's why we're trying to step up our enforcement actions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty, for getting this so quick.
No, not a problem.
Is there any other discussion on this? We have a motion, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Randy. I think Randy worked on that. Communication and recommendations from the mayor. Didn't say anything earlier. I was sad to announce that Eric Christensen has resigned, or is in the process of resigning. I got the email today.
Oh,
He'll be going
I
to...
didn't get that one.
I got the email today, and he'll be going to Door County. He sent that out today. I think he sent it out to all his staff today.
Tomorrow.
Oh, boy. He sent it out in an email to a bunch of people today.
Oh, maybe he changed his mind.
Okay, that's what I thought too, and that's, maybe I apologize for that if I did, but
Paper doesn't come out till Thursday, so.
Wednesday, if you pick it up.
TV goes out now.
yep.
I believe his staff meeting is in the morning, so.
Okay, I apologize for that, but I had the email today, and I thought I should announce it. Second item that I have to communicate, we need to establish a time, like next Monday, to discuss a very serious matter that we have going on with our library. There was a Wisconsin statute, chapter 43-64, is how our library is funded. And there's been each year we have to certify to the county that we are funding at the correct level, and that has been certified by the library board. The president of the library board has been certifying it, and those dollars are incorrect. We are not, according to state statute, we are not funding the library at the correct level. It puts us in a real vulnerable position, and we're gonna have to sit down as a council and figure out how we're going to operate with this way. I gave each of you a packet of information that came from the county today, and I'd like you to take, in your nighttime reading material, to take a look at that. I propose that we meet next Monday night to review and ask questions, and Neil is also, we've been working with Neil on this from a financial situation. Again, with levy limits, I don't know where the money's gonna come from, but I think if we put our heads together, we can make it work, hopefully. So that's all I had on that particular topic. Again, if you have questions, give me a call or Neil, but we'll have that in open session next Monday night at 6:30. Is that okay for everybody? I guess we talked a little bit about it in finance. Lee, 6:30 next week?
That's
Okay.
fine.
I think any communication from any other alderperson or future agenda items? City attorney,
Nothing here.
city administrator.
Just one quick note, we're awaiting when the potential recall elections will be in May and June, and there may be a potential we'll have to do some meeting adjustments again, depending on when they have them. We're supposed to find out Wednesday morning. So there may be something on next agenda to have you discuss options for May and June, because we need this room the next morning for elections, so.
Anything else? Like a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.